Hello everybody, this is ManuS and welcome back to the Eternal set review with the second part of the Justice cards for the latest set, Dark Frontier. And you know the drill. Before we continue with the cards, hit the subscribe button, turn on the notification icon if you haven't yet, and please consider whitelisting EternalTitans.com and YouTube on your adblock to help support the content. Alright, so first we have Seraph, Grand Strategist, 2 cost 05, and she has twist 5 to play a random unit with her attack and give it double damage. So yeah, not quite the old Seraph, quite a lot worse here. Don't really see this card being particularly good. In limited it's fine, like an 05 is a solid blocker, in late game she can do some powerful stuff. So in limited she looks quite good in a more grindy deck. But in constructed, I don't see this doing anything other than being maybe gimmicky. The twist is super expensive, super low impact, the body doesn't belly anything. Yeah, not a good card. Next we have Steadfast Paladin. For constructed, this is usually gonna be a bit too weak and too low impact, although the ability is kind of nice. And in limited, this makes for a pretty nice proactive 2-drop, especially as a target to put certain weapons on and stuff, and just kind of an annoying 2-drop that the opponent might have to use a removal on even to get rid of. So it seems pretty solid. It's not super impressive, like your deck should be fairly aggressive, and it's still a 2-1, so keep that in mind, but I think the card is at least quite good in proactive decks in limited. Next we have Sweatiest Faithful. The card is almost constructed playable. The problem is a bit every time you play a 1-drop and your 1-drop gets killed right away, then this on turn 2 is really bad. So you would need to have enough 2-drops to make sure that you have another 2-drop if you don't have Onslaught for this, for example. But the fact that you can warp it as early as turn 2 as a 2-cost 3/3 is pretty strong. Especially in limited, I think this is quite good. It's usually not a 2-drop, especially in limited. You might have some 1-drops. If you have 1-drops, they are fairly likely to live in limited, I would say. But even playing this a bit later alongside another card for 2 in an aggressive deck, or even getting to warp it, is pretty strong. So in limited it seems pretty solid at least. Next we have Touch of Grace, another questionable warp card. Here we get a bit more. You get invulnerable to damage this turn for the unit, but it's pretty expensive for 2. It's a fast spell at least, so that makes it a flexible trick. The warp is nice, but yeah, I think if the card would cost 1 it would be interesting. This way it's just too expensive. In limited it seems playable as a filler, I guess. Next we have Auric Lookout, basically a straight upgrade over the old version of this card. I don't remember the name right now, but yeah. Instead of just getting a 3-cost 2/3 endurance, we also get a scout on summon, and we also get the option to shift it on 2. So clearly not a constructed card, but a pretty nice limited card all in all. Next we have Inner Might, another sort of trick that is really only applicable to limited usually. It gives one of your unit +1/+1 this turn, plus an additional +1 for each other spell in your void, so for like spells matters decks. But even in limited I don't think this is going to be too great, so all in all the card seems too expensive and weak for what it does. Next we have Camo's Blueprints. This card's pretty nice actually. It's a mono faction tutor for weapons, which plays particularly well with the Auric 2-drop that makes weapons. Like you can use this on 3 to get your Sword of the Sky King, turn 4 play a 2-drop, discard outlet, discard your Sword of the Sky King, and then say reweave into the Auric Reclaimer, I think is the name, to get an 8/8 weapon on turn 4, for example, and stuff like that. Or even a 9/9 if you manage to trigger the Onslaught. And yeah, if you trigger the Onslaught on this is basically straight up better than Rise to the Challenge in terms of weapons. Keep in mind, Rise to the Challenge also gets units, so there's a significant difference there. But yeah, all in all, a pretty solid role player and interesting option to have in constructed, and in limited still fine if you have a couple of good weapons to get with this and trigger the Onslaught. Next we have Causal Blade Barrier, another limited only card, but in limited I quite like the card actually. There's quite a lot of armor synergies in Justice, and then having a 3-cost 5/5 at common is pretty powerful, and this also happens to play pretty well at protecting your armor because it's so big, so it also plays well with like relic weapons and stuff. So all in all I think this looks like a pretty strong limited common in Justice. Next we have Pristine Light. Well, what can you say about this card? This card is amazing. It's just incredible. It's a Vanquish that costs 1 Justice more and 1 power than Vanquish. And instead you get all the 4 plus attack units. You also get your own, but you can just throw away attack with a unit and then draw all the units that from your void that died this turn. So you just get everything back that died on your side. The card allows even for a couple of nice plays there. Like you can attack with a with a smaller unit that you want to rebuy, like a merchant for example. If the opponent blocks it and kills it, you can play Pristine Light and draw the merchant again and stuff like that. Card is super powerful, great market addition for basically any Justice deck, and a great main deck addition for controlling Justice decks. The card is a powerhouse and fairly, redefining at what you can do in Constructed and how you have to play with certain decks. Particularly good against Stone Scar right now. And time decks, but time decks aren't in the greatest spot once again. And this doesn't really help. In limited, it's still a pretty great removal. Next we have Retribution. Pretty solid limited removal, I would say. The fact that you have to attack first can be problematic, simply because, you know, if you can't attack because they have a big blocker that is holding you off, this is not going to help you, or you're going to have to use it to just silence and stun them instead, which is much worse. But for example, in like Huro, where you have a couple of flyers to make it easier to trigger this, to kill big ground guys, to win races and stuff, this seems pretty good all in all. I think for a common sort of trick/removal, I think the card is quite good in limited. Not a constructed card though. Then we have Righteous Intent. There's one of these cards that draws a better card and has a marginal impact. This one costs 3, gains you 3 armor. Pretty weak obviously. But you get Cassava Drewheart, which is kinda nice but also not that exciting. She has attack equal to your armor, and when you gain health, you gain that much armor. So basically she doubles all the health gain you have. Every time you gain health, including her lifesteal, her attack grows. So she does pretty powerful stuff, but you still have to get her started somehow. If the opponent can set you to 0 armor, it's kinda hard to get her going, potentially. Unless you play enough armor, and yeah, effectively you spend like 8 power on her over 2 turns. She's just not good enough. Like as a unit by herself, I think she would be quite interesting and constructed, but having to play Righteous Intent first makes her not good enough. In limited, however, she seems quite strong and a card that I would be happy to pick up. Not necessarily a first pick, but a high pick. And last but not least for part 2, we have Spellstrike Sorceress. 3 cost 1/1 that permanently gets +1/+1 if you play a spell, and alternatively you can shift her onto to make sure you can grow her first, and then she emerges as a bigger unit and more robust. There's a couple of like spells matters synergies and stuff. Not sure if they are enough and if they are strong enough to make it a dedicated draft strategy, but they are definitely pushing for that, and that card is at least solid. It's not great, like on turn 3 it's super fragile, but for example to like shifting it on 2 seems like a pretty solid option in the right decks. Alright, that's it for the second part of the Justice cards. Hope you guys like the review. Let me know in the comments what you think. Hit the like button if you enjoy it. Share it with your friends. Of course, subscribe to the channel for more. And turn on the notification icon so you don't miss out on more content. And one last thing. Please consider whitelisting EternalTitans.com and YouTube on your ad block. I usually put an ad at the beginning and end of each video, so you can just let the video run through, check out the ads at the beginning, at the end. It's a great way to help support our content for free and help us making more content for you guys. So I really appreciate that. And that's it again for this time. I'm your host ManuS. I thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.